Traders, welcome to your daily market update for Wednesday the 24th of June 2015. Overnight we've seen a fair bit of price action. We've seen the euro dollar sell off quite heavily, and we've seen the US dollar get quite a boost as Fed member Powell had some very positive things to say. Before I go through the charts and show you all of the price action as a result of Powell's moves and the continuing worries out of Greece happen to also coincide with the US dollar strength, sending the euro versus the US lower. Coming up today, we do have some German expectation data coming out for business climate, and following on from that, we do have BBA mortgage approvals for the pound. That's early on in the session, and I think the session today is really going to be ruled later on in the US, where we do have GDP. We do have a host of other data coming out as well, retail consumer spending. Do note that the GDP is Q1 and it is backward looking, so we'll wait and see if the market takes any support from that. If we do see the market get some support for the US dollar, I'm sure that we'll continue to see that reflected in the charts. Following that, we do have some crude oil inventories, but I must note that we do have another Eurogroup meeting, and the circus that is the ECB, IMF and Greece will continue on today. And I'm sure that the headline-driven market will be in focus. So keep an eye on Twitter and the news feeds for comments from officials to see if they have anything of importance that's shedding light on the situation, and you might be able to make some sense of the price action that could potentially get a little bit volatile. We could even potentially see the euro bounce if they continue to spruik that they're making progress, and should the market buy it. But lately the euro has been a little bit immune to the chatter going on. It hasn't been reacting to it, not as much as the recent bond and equity markets anyway. If we have a look at the US dollar index, you can see that it did bounce, and as I mentioned yesterday, this overhead resistance level at 95.70 did act as resistance, and we did come off from that a little bit. We'll wait and see if it holds up as resistance for now, or whether tonight's data actually pushes it through the resistance level and we move up into the next region that we have to contend with, which is a downward trend line that the market will have to navigate before we can actually call the bullish momentum intact. So this is the latest major lower swing high, and if we can take out that, well then technically we are back in a bull trend. So we do have a fair bit of price action to see out before we can actually get too excited. But I think that the US dollar has the ability to continue to move higher if the market starts to really accept that we will be getting an interest rate rise this year, especially with yesterday with Powell. He's a key member of the Fed coming out, and he was also suggesting that potentially there is room for 2 interest rate rises as European data is improving. Maybe what's holding them back right now just could be the Greece situation. So we'll have to wait and see, but I think that it's a good sign this US dollar bounce on the back of his comments. If we go to the New Zealand versus the US, as you can see, we're struggling to significantly move or sustainably move below 69 cents. And that's telling me that right now that maybe the New Zealand dollar isn't ready to move lower, and we may get a slight bounce today in the session. But of course, if we do break 69 cents and momentum picks up in the US dollar strength story and it breaks away, I'm sure it won't be long before we do make our way to 68 cents, as the fundamentals is definitely on a bearish trade. The Australian dollar, I'll zoom in for you, as I've mentioned, is range bound. We do have it ranging between the high and the major swing low area, and we are moving down to the lower side. We haven't broken below 77 cents really yet and sustainably held below that. But that is on the cards, and if we continue to see the US dollar strength, we could move down into this next region. Of course, we are consolidating, and I think that we're only going to see a breakout of that consolidation potentially on RBA data next month, or the market actually starting to look at a interest rate rise from the Fed, probably more to the point. The euro has come off, but however, we are still navigating some recent uptrend lines. It did fall on the back of just continuing concerns coming out of Greece, and also rumours that they are potentially looking to implement capital controls, which is a pretty big step and worrying for the locals. That's for sure, that they can't get money out of their banks. Also, the fact that we had US dollar strength played a major contributing factor. So keep an eye on that. For now, I'm definitely not saying that it is looking at further moves to the downside. And if we do get some further positive chatter tonight on the back of the Eurogroup meeting, we could actually see it bounce a little bit. So I'm keeping an eye on that for some potential support. The Great British Pound has come off, and it did come off on the back of yesterday's stronger US dollar. And it's fallen a little bit lower since then, but it has since rebounded a little bit, and we are trading about $1.58. So I think that the downside move for this could continue, providing that we do see the US dollar strength story continue. And if that is the case, well, then we could be drifting lower here for the pound. But we'll have to wait and see how the session rolls out with the US and the US dollar. We do not have really anything of significance coming out for the pound. Yes, we did have that small data print out later today, but that's really not going to have a major impact. So keep an eye on your technical major support and resistance levels, and keep an eye on the US dollar index. Speaking of the US dollar index, on the bounce, it did help the very confusing chart here of the US dollar Canadian dollar. We have bounced back up, and we did make a run for 124. However, we didn't actually get to close above it. It was a strong sign that we did make a run for it on the back of Powell's comments. And if we do continue to see some strength, I'm sure that we will be able to push higher. We do have a few key areas to navigate before we are out of the woods and potentially looking at a further significant longer-term bullish trend. But the recent moves are quite encouraging, so we'll see how the market can play out over the next few sessions. US dollar versus the Japanese yen really did excel and bounce on the back of Powell's strong comments for the Fed potentially raising rates. And that's really noticeable here in the candlestick on the daily. So we did have a pretty good bounce. We have broken the recent trend line. All we need to do now is take out the major swing high, which is a lower one. And 124.4 would help signify that we are in a new bullish uptrend. But definitely, if we see the momentum continue for the US dollar strength, that is a possibility. I wish you all the best in today's trade. I'll be back again tomorrow. So until then, trade well.